why isn't he reviewing the first one? Because that would have been too expected. Okay, everybody, today we're going all the way back to 1973 to look at the one and only, the amazing Magnum Force. Yes, the direct sequel to the one and only Dirty Harry. But before we go any further, before we dig into this legendary gem anymore, once again, and as always, to the trailer.
Eastwood is back in full force as Dirty Harry in Magnum Force. Jimmy Riley, big-time racketeer. Lou Guzman, narcotics king. J.J. Wilson, well-known pimp. There are killers on the loose, dressed like cops, and they always use a Magnum.
You and your partner are back on homicide.
It's a little dramatic, isn't it, Briggs? Not your usual style.
It's meant to be, Callahan.
Look, this thing might be bigger than even we think it is. This is the cream in the bottle, Callahan. Someone's trying to put the courts out of business. Look, you work with Briggs on this, Callahan.
They call him Dirty Harry, and he likes to do things his way. He's always around where the action is. In 24 hours, Harry manages to cover a stakeout, to stop a robbery, and to be a good neighbor.
Hi.
Oh, hi.
You're the cop who lives upstairs.
That's right.
That killers that look like cops are after Harry because he knows too much. Whenever there's trouble, they always call in Harry because they know he'll do the job. It's all in a day's work for Inspector Harry Callahan.
Okay, this motion picture was directed by Ted Post. Alright, you don't recognize the name, but we'll go down the list anyway. We're talking about he did a little motion pictures like Good Guys Wear Black, which, come on, you know is kind of cool, and Hang 'em High, and Whiffs, and Beneath the Planet of the Apes, and The Human Shield, and tons and tons and tons and tons and tons of television. Twilight Zone, Rawhide, Gunsmoke, Route 66, Perry Mason, Waterfront, Peyton Place. So, long track record, probably more TV, but he did some notable movies that you will remember and probably enjoyed just the way it is. Okay, starring as Dirty Harry, Inspector Callahan himself, the one, the only, Clint Eastwood. Let's do this. We're talking about he did things like Unforgiven. We're talking about he was in things like Pale Rider and Gran Torino, $1 Million Baby, Every Which Way You Can, and But Loose, and fucking whatever, and Good, the Bad, and the Ugly, and Firefox, and Heartbreak Ridge, and The Gauntlet, which you know I love, and Outlaw Josie Wales, and Kelly's Heroes, and High Plains Drifter, and Escape from Alcatraz, and I could go on and on and on and on and on. It just is the way it is. Legendary career, legendary director, the whole thing. Playing Briggs, another name you know I love, Hal Holbrook. Let's do this. Of course, we're talking The Fog. We're talking he was in Creepshow, and All the President's Men, and The Majestic, and The Firm, and Wall Street, and The Star Chamber, and Capricorn 1, and Rituals, and Midway, and The Great White Hope, and Natural Enemies, and TV, Evening Shade, Designing Women, you name it. Hal Holbrook was awesome. Playing Davis! David Soul. Let's take a walk down television memory lane, shall we? We're talking about he was in little things like Here Come the Brides, and the FBI, and Cannon, and the Yellow Rose, and A Murder, She Wrote, and Jake and the Fat Man, and Owen Marshall, Counselor at Law, and of course, we will always remember him for two things, really. Just the way it goes. Salem's Lot, Starsky and Hutch. Just the way... Oh, yeah, he had that Don't Give Up on Us Baby or whatever. Hit song, whatever. Doesn't make a difference. Let's keep moving. Plank Smith! Felton Perry. All right, doesn't ring a bell. But you're going to remember some of his stuff. We'll talk about he was in stuff like Weeds and RoboCop 1, 2, and Trace. And tons of TV, LA Law, Hooperman, Hill Street Blues, Ironside, and Adam 12, and Mannix, and The West Wing, and Stingray, which, God, nobody remembers when I got a review, and Barnaby Jones, and Dragnet, and Cagney and Lacey. So, he had a decent career, you know what I mean? Not a household name, but he was around, he was in the game, he was in this. You're going to remember his face if you know the RoboCop flicks, just the way it is. Plank Sweet! Tim Matheson. Delta House? Let's get going. Of course he was in Animal House. Of course he was in Almost Summer. In 1941, come on, in A Little Sex, in Dreamer, in Fletch, in Drop Dead Fred, in Van Wilder, and a lot of TV. West Wing, Heart of Dixie, Virgin River, Tucker's Witch, Breaking News. So, just the way it is, you know his face. Come on. Delta Fraternity House, that's what you're going to always associate him with. At least people from my generation. Playing Grimes! The one and only Robert Urich. Covered him before. You remember when we did Endangered Species. We're talking about he was in The Ice Pirates, which I think I reviewed too now that I think about it. And Turk 182, and a lot of TV. Soap, SWAT, American Dreamer, Crossroads, Tabitha, Marcus Welby, Lonesome Dove, and his two biggest claims to fame, Dantana on Vegas, and of course Spencer for Hire. So, he's not with us anymore, but he was in the game for a long time. There you go. Playing Astrachan, Kip Niven. Not a huge career, but a face you probably remember if you grew up in that time. You know, he was in Airport 75, he was in Earthquake, and New Year's Evil, and Damnation Alley, and Swashbuckler, which was like the last flick with, Clint himself. And we're talking about the Hindenburg and a lot of TV work also. So he was out there about and running around. There's also a plethora of other faces that I have to kind of just fly through really quick. People that when you see them, you're going to say, holy shit, look at them. They were so young at the time. Didn't know. We're talking people like Mitchell Ryan. Come on, you're talking about Lethal Weapon and Liar Liar. And Richard Devon, he was on TV, Gunsmoke. Daniel Boone. Tony Giorgio, and he was in The Godfather and Capone, and Margaret Avery, Which Way Is Up, The Color Purple, and John Mitchum, come on, F Troop, The Clear Horizon, and a very unknown at the time, yet quite topless in this, Suzanne Summers from Three's Company. So, you have a whole collection of people in there where you're going to be like, holy goddamn shit, there they are. There you go. All right, everybody, we're going to do this in 90 seconds or less. So keep it short, keep it fast, keep it entertaining, keep it moving, so we get to a much rather be the summation. And I'm loaded with energy today because it's first thing in the morning, so I could probably pull it off. Movie starts out, there's a court trial going on, and there's this guy, I think his name was Ricca, and he's a mobster, a bad guy, not a good guy, but he gets off on a technicality. The town folks do not like this guy, they are losing their minds, it is what it is. So he drives off out of town, but before you know it, he's being followed by a San Francisco motorcycle cop. And he pulls him over, and before you know it, he just unloads on him, kills everybody in the car, just the way it is. Well, at this point, enter one Dirty Harry Callahan, and his new partner, like he gets in every movie. It is what it is. Anyway, Lieutenant shows up, Briggs, and says, you're on stakeout, you're not part of this anymore, get out of here, we don't want you working homicide. Leave. He leaves. He goes to the airport to get a burger with his buddy. Next thing you know, terrorists try to take over a plane. Well, who else is going to jump in there and take all these guys out? One, Inspector Harry Callahan. Later on that night, Harry goes to the shooting range, which he likes to do, pass some time, and he has a couple situations. He bumps into an old friend of his, a fellow police officer, and this guy's really living on the ragged edge. He's falling apart. He's coming undone. As Harry likes to refer to say, he's ready for the rubber gun squad. Anyway, talks to him for a minute, and then he goes inside to get his practice in, where he meets these four young, hot-shot rookie cops who he is impressed with because they have incredible abilities, they're all excellent marksmen, all this other kind of stuff. It is what it is. They get up, they leave, the night continues. The next day, there's a pool party going on with more mobsters and a aforementioned very topless Suzanne Summers. And before you know it, this cop shows up. He hides in the bushes. He throws a bomb into the pool. He machine guns down everybody. It's apparent now there's rogue cops running around taking out all the baddies. Before you know it, Harry gets a phone call. He has to go downtown. His partner is standing behind the counter at a convenience store. And, well, you know, there's some bad guys in there. Harry's hiding behind the glass, and all of a sudden they take out all of these bad guys. Harry is a busy boy. He takes out a lot of bad guys in this. Cut a little bit further, and one of Harry's old partners is now doing a stakeout on another mobster. Guy's into some pretty weird kinky shit, but we won't get into any of that. It doesn't really make a difference. When all of a sudden, a cop shows up again. Guns him down. Guns his two playthings down. Takes out his henchmen. That kind of stuff. Well, Harry's old partner and his new partner go running across the street, where they run into a police officer who just shot another police officer on his way, running away from all this, and we find out then and there the truth that it is one Ken Hutchinson / David Soul from Starsky and Hutch. He's one of the cops running around, or maybe the only cop. Oh, well, there's a group of them. Who am I kidding? You're going to figure that out by now. Anyway, Harry's starting to wonder. He's starting to suspect. He's starting to think there is something wrong. Well, they have a little bit of a shooting competition the next day. Is what it is. Harry loses to this young, up-and-coming rookie. Before you know it, though, he uses his gun so he can do a little ballistics check, and he realizes, my God, these cops are not who we think they are. They're a bunch of bad dudes. But he insists that they come along on this little raid they're going to do, and during this raid, one of them dies. Bad stuff. Is what it is. He is later confronted by the other three remaining, saying either you are with us or you are against us. Where Harry says, I'm afraid you've misjudged me. And you know there's going to be a big climactic end where the three cops and Harry have to go at it. Yeah, they try to blow him up with a bomb, and they actually do blow up his partner, but the end of the movie turns out it's this big chase scene. Briggs is a loser. It turns into a whole thing. I'm not going to tell you exactly how it ends, but they're flying around on motorcycles on top of aircraft carriers and all kinds of crazy shit. It is what it is. Let's get going to the summation. Okay, everybody. Does Magnum Force work? Yes, Magnum Force works. It's a great successor to the original Dirty Harry. A little bit different. We'll get into all the reasons why, but before we do anything else, you know we got to get the big three out of the way. First, the directing. This movie looks great. I know we all haven't heard of Ted Post as we have of like Spielberg, but he does a great job in this motion picture. Shots are framed well. It's still gritty enough to feel kind of like street level and shit like that. There's some handheld work. There's some dolly work. Whatever it is, the movie looks really good. So the directing, no complaints at all. Let's keep moving. The writing. The writing's solid. Harry is his usual wise-ass self. He's a little bit grumpy, but he's a good guy. You know the character. You know how it goes. Come on, most of this is all story written by John Milius. Come on, he's a legend. Anything with John Milius in it, I know I'm going to like. When his words are on a page or his story's being presented, I'm there. And finally, the acting. Everybody in this thing is a top-level actor. Let's be real. And if not a top-level actor, they gave top-level performances in this. This is basically a cop drama action flick. You know what it is. Yet, everybody goes above and beyond. Come on, Eastwood and Holbrook alone make this motion picture, and everybody else in it just carries it beautifully. David Soul is great. Everybody does their job in this motion picture's acting. Takes a almost implausible storyline and lifts it up to another place. So, is what it is. Okay, let's get back on track to why this motion picture works. Simply because it delivers on what it is supposed to be, and it gives it to you in bucket loads. That's all I'm saying. We are talking about it's a cop action drama, and for that, this is a perfect representation of one. Eastwood's charisma is spot on. The looks, the vibe, everything that he delivers in this thing is purely what you would want to see and expect to see from Eastwood as Dirty Harry Callahan. So you have the main character as the main character you love from the first one, and you sit there and you say, okay, we're on that journey again. We're going again. Let's have a good time. Second, as I said, all motion pictures, they need one thing that works, and that is pacing. And this movie rolls along perfectly. Perfect pacing. It's about 2 hours long. It doesn't feel like 2 hours long. There's enough drama, and there's enough dialogue, and enough action, so that it just churns along like a train, keeps you entertained, and keeps on delivering. Also, one of the things that they did that was brilliant in this motion picture was they completely mixed it up. Dirty Harry is who Dirty Harry is. He hasn't changed at all, which is brilliant and great storytelling. But the dynamics of the time and the way that they changed the character's purpose completely changed. Now, let's go back to the 1970s. There was a huge crime rave problem. I mean, cities were inundated with crime, and those kind of things affect the motion picture industry. When people sit there and they see everything coming unglued around them, they kind of want motion pictures where there's a hero that comes along and says, screw the system, I'm going to clean shit up, blah, blah, blah. In the 70s, you had that kind of thing, and it went on to like the mid-80s. You had the Dirty Harry Callahans, you had the Popeye Doyles, you had the Cobras, you had all those kind of guys that would go on there and say, listen, things are out of control, I'm going to bring it back under control, it is what it is. But one of the things that happened in the first movie was like, a lot of people are like, Jesus, is this guy like a vigilante cop? Is he a lunatic? I mean, what's he doing? I mean, we understand he's killing bad guys, but sometimes he skirts the limits and he kind of breaks the boundaries. Well, this motion picture was one of those motion pictures where they flipped that on its head. They basically said to you, well, you thought he was like this vigilante crazed cop in the first one, but we're going to show you what vigilante crazed cops are and show you that Harry is not that guy. When it comes to the scenes where they're like, you're either with us or against us, and Harry says, well, you've misjudged me. And he's like, well, where does this all stop? Today's drug dealers and mobsters and pimps. But is it tomorrow somebody for jaywalking? Is it somebody who spits on the sidewalk? Where does the line end? He hates the system, but it's the only system he has to work with, and he works within it. Kind of. So, you have this kind of shift from the first motion picture where everybody else is like, Harry, you can't do this kind of stuff, and he's just out there kicking ass and taking names, to this one where he's out there kicking ass and taking names, but he realizes there's limits you don't cross, where the new cops are just like, hey, we're going to go out there and clean up the streets, we're the new heroes, we're the new this, the new that, blah, 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 blah. And that is something that they kind of did intelligently in the Dirty Harry series. If you watch all of them all the way through, it goes from he's like the rogue cop to when he's the one like stops the rogue cops to it does not stay the same guy in every single motion picture. So it was a brilliant, brilliant arc to take on the first 3 or 4 Dirty Harry motion pictures. And another brilliant thing about this motion picture was the change in the antagonists, the bad guys. You remember in the first one, you had Scorpio. He was just a deranged, friggin' lunatic psychopath. The guy was severely mentally disturbed. And basically, he was a reflection of kind of like the Zodiac killer of the day that was running around. And he was kind of like taking the place of that. This dude was just a lunatic, a mentally insane bastard, sometimes devious and slick, but still a lunatic. Where in this motion picture, the antagonists, the bad guys, are from within. They're supposed to be the good guys. They are not raging lunatic nut jobs. They are the calm, cool professionals that are calculating and under control and just going out there and clearly executing people. Now, again, skirts that line because obviously they're executing bad people and criminals, but, I mean, let's face reality. These guys are completely going past the point. It's like, they're doing shit that's beyond questionable by any stretch of the imagination. So, it goes from being the killer is this outward thing, breaking into our world and causing havoc. And he's so disturbed and so psychotic that he's breaking into the world of the regular people and causing mayhem. To now, the bad guys are part of our world. They are part of organized society. They are part of our world that is supposed to make you feel safe, make you feel comforted. But they've gone rogue. And now they've become like authoritarian, call it whatever you want. And the danger comes from within instead of from without. So that's a really, really brilliant way to take it. A brilliant way to change up the whole story structure of a Dirty Harry movie. Now, are there problems with this motion picture? Oh, of course there's problems with any motion picture. I've said it a million times. But it's the kind of problems that come with any motion picture like this. Let's face reality. You name me a police officer or any group of police officers that has this much action during one course of 1 week. I mean, taking out terrorists on an airplane, hijackers, whatever the hell they were. They're taking out stores filled with robbers. He's involved in this whole situation that's just got completely out of control and off her hand. I mean, these things just don't happen that often in like a 24, 48, 72-hour period. I'm just saying. And yet he just rolls along and you have one incident after another incident after another incident after another incident. And there's like police shootings every other hour in this motion picture. So, you know, it's one of those kind of things. We're always saying in the background, oh, the public's going to scream every time you pull your gun out. But Harry's pulling his gun out every third hour of the day. So it's one of those kind of things where you're like, okay, none of that makes sense to what's supposed to be going on. I get it, but how do you have a movie like this unless you have that kind of shit in it? But if you overlook that little thing, it's just a great flick. Yes, logic be out the window. It doesn't make a difference, but the story is tight enough and concise enough to sit there, to keep you rolling, to keep you involved in it, and to keep you thoroughly entertained and loving your one Dirty Harry Callahan, who bucks the system, is always telling his lieutenant, his boss, where to go and how to stick it, and always giving him some kind of a snide attitude. Hey, everybody in the world is like that. So, it's one of those things, overlook that little flaw, and you're on your way. A couple last things I just got to point out before I take off. One, the soundtrack, the shit from the soundtrack is amazing. You got to hear it, you got to drink it in, you got to take it in. It just rocks. It's that perfect 1970s kind of soundtrack that when you're listening to it, you're just like, man, I could play this on the stereo all day, and I am going to have the time of my life. Number two, there's another actor in this motion picture that I didn't name with the first list because it's a little bit fun, and that's Albert Popwell, who popped up in all the Dirty Harry motion pictures, at least up to Sudden Impact, where he is either playing the bank robber in the first, he's playing the pimp in this one, and the third one he's playing Mustafa, the head of that group, and the fourth one he's playing Horace, his partner. So he's one of those actors. It was kind of like the running gag. When is he going to pop up in the movie? When is he going to be in it again? When is he going to... And he pops up in this one and is just awesome in and of itself just for that. So get out there and watch yourself Magnum Force. Before there was like John Wick movies and all that kind of shit, there was shit like this. A little bit more grounded, a little bit more realistic, but entertaining and in fun. Yeah, today it's going to get slapped with all kind of labels, you know what I mean? Because he's out there, he's taking care of the bad guys, chicks are throwing themselves all over him, blah, 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 they'll call it toxic this, they'll say, I don't want to hear it. This is a throwback to the 1970s and some great motion picture making with a great leading man, a good director, even though he's in a household name, an incredible supporting cast, and just a fun time had overall. Get out there, check out Magnum Force, check out all the Dirty Harrys. 1, 2, 3, and 4. Forget the fifth. Don't watch Deadpool. It's an insult to you, me, and everybody else. And go have yourself some fun. Anyway, everybody, be good. Take care. Stay out of trouble. Be kind to a stranger and be there for your friends. But above all else, never, and I mean never, take any bullshit from anybody. See you soon.